Hello, my name is Doris Montalvo, and welcome to episode number 36. So today, I'm gonna talk about "Are You Pathetic?" That's the title that I put in today's description. So this is something that kind of has been floating around in my world for a little bit, and I was looking to maybe talk about it earlier and just never got around to it. So I thought this week I kind of talk about it. And so it's often we go to this place where we go into, well, first you're like wondering, well, what do you mean by like going into being pathetic? Are you pathetic? Well, it's the place where you go into your story. And it's the place where you make your story real, basically. You make your story real. You make your story significant. And you keep on, referring to your story as though that is real when really it's just a story. Stories can be great. They can be really entertaining. They can be a lot of fun. And they can also, it's also what we use to basically limit ourselves. And so when you go into this like being pathetic story, like, oh, I can't accomplish anything, I'm pathetic, and so I'll sit here and just do absolutely nothing. Well, is that really what you want to choose in your world? Like maybe you want to choose it for a little while. It's kind of fun to do that sometimes. I mean, I do it. I'm great at it. And oh, someone's calling me. And so what if you chose it for a little while and then you got kind of bored with it and you're like, do you really want to be pathetic all the time? Because when you're pathetic, it isn't actually that much fun. It's rather kind of boring because you're not actually doing anything. And most of us actually like to do things, more so than we are willing to acknowledge. And most of the time we don't do anything, or the things that we end up doing aren't actually contributing to creating more in our life. Or we do a lot of things that might contribute to some degree, like, cleaning the house when you really know that you should be doing other things. That's actually going to create more. Nothing wrong with cleaning the house. It's nice to have a nice clean house. And really like this place of where we live our story. And it's really interesting because where am I going to go with this? There's all this stuff floating around right now. There's this thing that we use the past, like our story of our past, what we have chosen in the past, as the thing that limits us. And we've chosen to use that not to actually create anything different now. Because you're like, no, but like, this thing that happened in the past and da-da-da-da, and you keep on like using that as your excuse. You're kind of being pathetic because you're basically saying that you can't choose anything else now. I mean, whatever that thing was in the past, it's there, it's in the past. What's also really interesting is if you would then go back to that story, that particular situation from where you are now, you probably have a different perspective on it. So what you thought it was back then may be something completely different now. Maybe it's not even the same thing. Maybe when you look at it, you realize by looking at it from a different place now, because you are different now, you're not the same. No one is. We're always changing. We're always choosing something different. We're always being something different. So if you went back to that situation and you didn't have the same story about it, you saw it from a different point of view, would it be a different story? Would it be something completely different? And if somebody else was in the same situation or was at the same place and they saw it from a different point of view, well, their story would be completely different than yours. And so it's only relevant in that very moment for that very short period of time, and then it isn't anymore because it literally has changed. And so yet we try to hold on to it and make it real for as long as possible, which doesn't actually really doesn't really create more in your life. And what else could you actually choose? And with this kind of talking about being pathetic and just, using that and using that story to keep that in place, it's really interesting to also be aware of it. And I'm like actually pretty amazing at doing this. So I'm literally an expert at this. Is this place where you don't actually do something. It's the place where you want to start a business, maybe just as an example, or you want to change your life in some sort of way, and it can be anything. It can be with exercise, or it can be with, I don't know, eating something, eating differently, or starting a business. Like, it can be all kinds of things, right? Where we're like, I'm gonna change this thing, but you don't actually change it. You don't actually do anything different. You're just like hoping it will change, and willing it to change, and it's like. And then it doesn't change, and then you're surprised, you're shocked. What the hell? It didn't change. What's going on? Like, and then and then you justify that you're pathetic because, like, look, nothing changed. I'm still pathetic. Nothing actually created differently. And it's interesting that we use that as a justification not to change anything. And what if you change that? What if you actually chose to do something slightly different that you'd never chosen to do before? And what if you actually chose that as your thing? Like, kind of chose that, that I'm going to literally change something every single day. Well, guess what? Your life would change. And if you actually chose that, like actually said, okay, I'm going to choose just one thing that I'm going to do different every single day. And you committed to changing just one thing, and it could be tiny. It could be like, I'm going to brush my teeth different. I don't know. I'm going to choose not to eat this thing, or maybe when I choose to eat something, I'm actually going to ask my body, hey, buddy, are you interested in having this? No, okay, I won't have it today. Just changing one thing will change your entire life. We think we maybe have to do all these things all the time. It's like, yeah, but it's like literally choosing to do something else. Choosing something to change your life. And the brilliant thing is that you actually are capable of all of it. Choosing one thing or choosing your whole life. You're literally capable of doing it all. And the other thing that's really amazing is we are amazing, and we never acknowledge that we're amazing. Like, to be pathetic actually is quite amazing. It takes an extreme amount of effort to be pathetic. It's a lot of work, actually. A huge amount of work. You don't realize it, but it is. And to be pathetic, like, actually takes a ton of work to be that way. And again, it's just something that people think is valuable or something. Like, you get attention or something like that if you're pathetic, and so you just keep on choosing it. What if you just chose something else? And like, what if you actually looked at what else you could choose? What else could I choose here? Would it actually create the future I'm looking to create? Do I actually know what the future is that I'm looking to create? Maybe you haven't even asked yourself that question, even looked at it. Like, what is it that I'd like to create in the world? It was really interesting. I watched a movie last night on Steve Jobs. And for anyone that doesn't know who Steve Jobs is, maybe you can Google him, you can find out. Anyways, he worked for Apple. He was one of the main people at Apple for many years. And he created things that changed the way we did things. He was part of creating the iPod. The iPod revolutionized how we listen to music. It completely changed the whole industry. And so you look at people that have changed industries, well, they looked at the world in a very different way. And they looked at, okay, what is it that I want to create? What am I aware of that maybe no one else is aware of. And I'm going to create that. I'm going to make that happen. What if you actually were the same? The iPod was huge. And then the next huge thing was the iPhone. The iPhone was massive. It changed the whole way we used phones, basically. It's the whole era of smartphones, which, I don't think I need to go into that. Pretty much everyone now has one. And so it's like, these are, using Steve Jobs as an example, he's somebody that looked at what he wanted to create in his world. And he looked at it from what he knew was possible. And it took him a while to actually get there. It didn't happen for him overnight. As is the case with most people, nothing happens overnight. It is choosing that same thing over and over and over again every single day for like 10, 15, 20 years. And then magic shows up. Well, I shouldn't say then magic shows up. It's magic the whole way along. But then other people see the magic in it. Whereas before, people just don't see that. And so what if you focused on what it was that you wanted to actually create? What is it that you actually desire to create in the world? That's maybe a great place to start, is like actually looking if I'm choosing pathetic all the time, have I not actually looked at what I actually do want to create in this world? And is choosing pathetic actually going to create that? Is it going to get me to where I want to go? Probably not. And so it's like, what else can you choose? And really, I think that the biggest thing is always looking at, will this create more? Will this choice that I'm choosing right now, will it actually create more? Will it actually create what I truly desire? Will it create what I'd like to create in the world? And if it isn't, then why am I actually choosing this? Why would I choose to be pathetic? Why would I choose to not do something that I know it's actually going to create more? Why don't I just choose what I know will actually create the future that I'm looking for? And so that's really, really what it comes down to, is like, and again, like if you haven't looked at what it is that you'd like to create in this world, then maybe that's something you do want to look at. And then the next thing is, what am I actually doing? Like actually doing, like choosing, like doing, like physically. There's actually some physical choosing that is required to make that happen. And am I actually choosing that? And then looking at it literally every day, am I actually choosing that? Is this going to create what I desire? And if it isn't, maybe it's time to choose something else. Maybe it's time to choose something else that does create something along the lines of what you'd like to create in the world, what your desire is to create in the world. And start looking at choosing that every day instead of what you have currently been choosing. Because the beauty of it is you literally can change anything right now. In this very moment, you can literally choose to change something. And there was something else that came up recently too, is about resistance. I'm a master of resistance. I am literally the expert at resistance. And there was this point of view that showed up in my world the other day, and that was talking about resistance instead of making it wrong, which is what I do most of the time. What if you looked at resistance as you're actually getting to the thing that can change everything in your life? You're actually at that. You're approaching that point, or you're approaching that the thing when you hit that resistance. So instead of walking away from it, you walk towards it. And what can that create? Like, you're actually getting really close to changing. And this is the point where I know for me, I maybe would walk away. Well, what if you walk towards it and see what happens? And what if resistance was just a way to notify you that, hey, guess what? You're close. Keep going. Instead of making yourself wrong for it. So that was another kind of neat thing that showed up. And so there's so many different things in this world that are just there to give us information. And it's like, okay, then you get to choose what you want to do with it. And again, what do you want to choose in this world? What do you want to create? Are you actually doing anything to create that? And if you're not, you may want to look at it, or not. You can just keep choosing the same thing you're choosing and you'll get nowhere. But if you want to actually change the world, you got to start looking at what you'd like to change and what lights you up and what you want to play with, and if you're actually choosing that. So that's what I invite you to do this week, to play with that a bit and see what shows up. And let me know in the comment section. And we'll see you again next week. Awesome. Have a good week. Bye.